Welcome back in live to another episode of ROC Boys football. The game just finished up legitimately 2 minutes ago. The dogs, the dogs were barking. They were barking tonight. That was actually one of the more incredible games I watched. People on Twitter in the first half were like, "Oh, it's a snooze fest." We just watched some of the easily the two best teams in the country. It's not even close. Full of NFL draft talent, go toe to toe. The linebackers were flying around on both teams. Some huge plays, big explosive plays on both sides of the ball. Dill, raw reactions. What are you taking away from this football game?
I think the Dogs, I think they played Georgia football this game. What stood out to me most is they were able to get their linebackers going. They were blitzing them basically every play. Yeah. And that's what Georgia, I feel like, should have been doing from the start. And they didn't use them last game as effectively against Bama. And they got back to it, and obviously they were giving Bama fits all day on offense. Aside from the turnover by Stetson, Bama really struggled to get in the end zone.
Yeah, I was it looking like Bama wasn't going to score a touchdown the whole game until Stetson gave up that turnover. What you said, I'll echo. The Nakobe Dean, Channing Tindall play with their heads on fire.
Don't forget Quay Walker.
Quay Walker too, but I thought Tindall and Nakobe Dean were just leading the charge. Obviously, Nakobe Dean's he was our preseason All-American pick. If you watch the film from last year, this dude is an absolute stud. I think he's a top 15 pick, easily a linebacker one after these couple games. What was the biggest thing for me is Georgia came out in the second half and they were like, we're going to play what you said, Georgia football. Salyer moved to right guard after playing left tackle pretty much the whole season, and they were starting to move the ball. And there is not a running back in the country I'd rather have to close out a game in the fourth quarter than Zeus Samir White. Dude was absolutely carrying people on his back that last drive until Brock Bowers got it in the flat for that touchdown. Resilient, honestly. And I didn't think Georgia had it in him, as Georgia moneyline bettors were thrilled. We picked Georgia to win the national championship game earlier in the season, mostly off of JT Daniels going to be the quarterback. Stetson Bennett, the unlikely hero, comes in, gets it done. I was calling
for they kind of won in spite of him, not
a little bit so. A little bit, yeah, a little bit so. I can read maybe some of my texts that I sent you middle of the game saying, F word, that's so bad. I hate Stetson. I hate him. What I can't say. What a loser. What an a-hole. I think I might have called him a curly-headed F word. Yeah, not great. I mean, I was so mad after that. Not great. Hey man, he came back. He made it happen. Looking at like the box score, I didn't really watch it as like a film type of a game, but the box score shows just a lack of passing attack. I was calling for George Pickens all night. He makes that incredible 52-yard catch. What did you see on the offense side of the ball from the Georgia Bulldogs?
I mean, of course, it wasn't like wildly impressive by any means. I think Bama had some penalties that really helped, especially in the secondary.
Yep.
But I think if you watch that, you could see they really struggled to run the ball in the first half and honestly struggled to do anything. And started to get going, especially the run game. Hit a big play with James Cook, which was probably the biggest play of the game. And obviously then I think once they got going, once they got the lead, it seemed like everything changed for them. More energy on offense, especially out of the offensive line, and they got cranking a little bit.
Justin Schaefer belly flopping on that pile. I was so mad because I thought that was gonna get called. I was like, "You idiot!" And then it just doesn't get called. I'm surprised it didn't. It was very late, but it's pretty much what we've seen all year. Like, or at least like in these games, like Georgia's offense goes as the run game goes. They couldn't run the football in the first half, and minus an explosive play to Pickens, couldn't really move the ball. They start running the ball well in the second half. Try to get cute on a couple plays, get themselves behind the chains a little bit, but kind of overcome it with some good play action, and obviously getting Brock Bowers loose in space. That dude is an absolute freak for how fast he can move at his size. Had some incredible catches. Not didn't light up the box score like he has been, but some really clutch catches, some big plays. and the Bulldogs get it done. Another thing that popped off, I'm just kind of word vomiting, I guess. Will Anderson's an absolute
animal. Like I couldn't believe it.
I think he'd be the first round pick in the 2022 NFL draft, and him and Aiden Hutchinson, but like Will Anderson
was he offsides every play, or is he just that much faster and more explosive than ever? Because it was like he's in the backfield, no one's out of their stance.
His jump is absolutely gross. He was so disruptive on almost every single play.
Yeah.
And they tried chipping him with tight ends. They tried chipping him with running backs. I think at one point they've had a tackle, running back, and tight end chip him, and he still got into disrupt the play. Dude's an absolute – and shout out Christian Harris too. Christian Harris was flying around the field.
That was a game out of him.
He's a guy we'll talk about in the linebacker rankings. Disgusting physical traits. Hasn't seen the field as well as you'd want out of a middle linebacker, but he had it today. He actually overran that run gap fit in the James Cook big run, I think, if we watch the film back. But nonetheless, he was phenomenal. Took advantage of a banged up secondary as well. Georgia did.
Yeah, and one thing Georgia did do is I think that's as well as I've seen Darian Kendrick play this year. I don't think he gave up almost nothing.
He was nails today. He was nails today.
They didn't give up any real big plays besides maybe that one up the seam to Jameson, and that was obviously unfortunate for Bama. Yeah, I don't want to say it like they lost because of it, but it certainly flipped the game.
There wasn't a wider. That's actually something we have to talk about. And I don't want to talk too much about injuries. Obviously, super unfortunate, but there just wasn't a wide receiver that could step up and had the chemistry. I mean, Mechie and Jameson Williams combined for it was well over, I'm pretty sure, 50% of those passing yards or receiving yards that Bama had all year. Bryce Young just clearly didn't have the chemistry with the other
handful of drops out of the young guys.
And Ajayi Hall is a guy that I think he was like a top 20 recruit and just had a few unfortunate drops. Slade Bolden was giving them some good work, but that's just.
Well, Bolden does what he does in the slot, but you do need something down the field to attack Clemson or Georgia, because obviously they have bigger, slower corners, and I'll stand by that till I die.
Keely Ringo is a guy that I was mentioning earlier, and not to cut you off, earlier in the season. I mean, this guy was coming in as one of the highest cornerback recruits. I think Jalen Ramsey was one of the only higher recruits coming in. And George was like, "Oh, what are we gonna do in secondary? What are we gonna do in the secondary? We lose Stokes. We lose I'm blanking on the other guy's name.
Tyson Campbell.
Tyson Campbell.
That right? Yeah.
They bring in Darian Kendrick and Keely Ringo. Just Kirby said it in the post game interview. Just consistently getting better. Amir Speed, I think, was playing earlier. Ringo puts it together and has an absolutely phenomenal performance. And obviously the pick.
Also, who played incredible is Chris Smith at safety. He played as well of the game as I've seen him play.
Yeah.
I mean, he made the big play against Clemson and then has struggled a lot with injuries. But in terms of free safety play, I thought he was very good. I thought
Lewis Cine was also just.
Yep.
He's my number one safety or my number two safety behind.
He's a hammer. He's an old school hammer.
I mean, he loves being around in the box, loves being physical, and absolutely and showed off tackling in space and in coverage was also very, very good. This dude's going to be an early second round pick. I saw some nerd on Twitter saying, "This is why these guys opt out of the games. They get hurt." Lewis Cine played himself into first round talks. I think he was phenomenal. Guys play for one. It's for their school. They committed here. They you can see the passion. They're not going to opt out of these games.
Yeah, are you going to opt out of a tight end?
Absolute loser.
That would crush a lot of guys.
But there's guys who play themselves into some real money. Lewis Cine was one of them. Channing Tindall, I think, might be one of them. Keely Ringo, obviously not eligible, but getting his name on draft boards.
I mean, Christian Harris looked like what you kind of want to see out of him.
Put it together, yep. All these guys, and obviously unfortunate with Jameson Williams, but it was just such a fun game. I thought Bama was going to run away with it after Bennett.
After that fumble, that was tough.
And granted, Todd Monken just drawing up some great plays. Gets Jermaine Burton open in the play action game, gets a PI call, and then free play. Donnie Mitchell, who's another guy that a lot of Bama Twitter's a high recruit, speedster. Let's get these guys going. puts maybe the play of the year for the Bulldogs and scores that.
Yeah, that was huge.
Touchdown.
I mean, I thought frankly, Monken. I didn't think the offense was great in the first half, but he did pick it up and started doing a little more that stuff that was working. I don't know. So there were some things in the first half that just.
I mean, you run the ball again. They ran the
too
ball.
Too many penalties, though, honestly, and sacks. There was a lot of they were always behind.
Too many negative plays. They'd have a 5-yard run and 2nd and 5, and then they call an end around and get tackled for a 3-yard loss, and you're 3rd and 8 again, which is not where Stetson thrives. It's so hindsight being what a stupid call on that flea flicker or end around. When if that ball hits, he's a genius. So I'm not gonna knock him. I actually like the play call too. Obviously, safe. I thought they had Bowers.
They had him 1-on-1. I'm surprised he didn't throw it.
Gotta throw that ball up. George Pickens, quiet. He was a guy that I tweeted out. Thought he'd have a game.
Quiet catch. In a sense, but he did have the huge catch, which was huge, and then he did draw a PI. So it's not like he was totally irrelevant.
That's true, and he played the most amount of snaps I think we've seen, even though they didn't target him that much.
They didn't really target anybody down the field.
Kenny McIntosh is a guy that next year, he's gonna he's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, I'm trying to think of other guys I want to shout out. Jay Kamard has been solid for Georgia all year. Obviously, that defense doesn't need any help, but he's one of the best punters, probably minus that San Diego State cat. Really, really good punter. Had some massive punts to pin him inside the 10 multiple times. And hey, in games like this, when it's 6-9 going into half, field position, getting it done on special teams matters, and they got it done. Any other things that you want to note before we call it quits on the episode? I'm trying to think of more things. My Brian Robinson prop that I really wanted to take, unfortunately, did not hit. He ended up having 22 carries, which just did not. Bama ran a hell of a lot of plays. 57. Is that over 80? You're the math guy. I think that's almost over 80.
Yeah, right.
It's over 80. Over 80 plays. It's a lot of plays to only have 18 points, and obviously red zone defense. Red zone defense got it done. Bama never could really run the ball consistently. I think Brian Robinson had maybe a 12 to 15 yard carry.
D line was good. Jalen Carter's incredible. He's so good.
He's gonna be a top 15 pick, I think. Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis.
I think all three of them played really good ball today.
One other guy,
Nolan Smith, looked good.
That's my guy. Nolan Smith doesn't get enough credit. He's not the elite edge rusher, but that dude plays really, really freaking hard in the run game. He always runs down plays. He ran down a screen to force a 3rd down. I don't really remember if they got the conversion, but stuff like that wins these type of games. And Nolan Smith's kind of one of those leaders. They brought him in, former #1 overall recruit. I think he edged out Thibodeau in that class. So Nolan Smith, phenomenal game as well. And that rounds it out. It's just that the Georgia defense was back. You said it. They were firing on all cylinders, really playing aggressive. The aggressive style we didn't quite see against Alabama in the SEC title game. Kind of trying to keep Bryce Young in the pocket, which is not Bryce Young can sling it around, so you're going to want to get pressure on him. Thought they did a really good job of spying Bryce Young, so when he breaks the pocket, a guy like Channington on that 3rd down in the red zone comes in, brings him to the ground, forces a field goal. And obviously a blocked field goal too. Special teams, man. There's a lot happened in this game. I'm trying to rerun it in my head, but
yeah, it was just such a good game.
Stuff of legends.
Old school defense in the first half. Team, they both kind of got it a little going in the second, and then Bama didn't. But
one thing I guess we can talk about as we close out the show: does this change the guard? Are we seeing a change of the guard? Georgia.
I think you got to see a couple of years out of the Dawgs, but
we
would have thought that about Clemson, and Georgia's gonna get gutted because this again, great year. Everybody was pretty much upperclassmen for the most part. There's a few young guys, but
yeah, that's true.
Mostly old.
True. That's a really
Zamir,
they're gonna lose 12 guys on
multiple
defense.
linemen.
Yeah.
Their whole D line.
A little bit LSU transfer quarterback Stetson. Originally, but it is a little.
I think Kirby Smart does a far better job developing talent.
And they have some really good young quarterbacks, Brock Vandergoff and
God, they still Georgia though with the quarterbacks. Like, come on.
Yeah. To be
have
fair,
a guy who can win you some
outside
games.
Of that one.
I don't think those stats tell the story because he took a lot of sacks. The turnover was horrible.
Yeah, that's
true.
Know. And he didn't really use his legs as well as.
They also at the end of the day, they scored 6 points in the first half.
A big 0 on the interceptions in one of these scores is a.
Yeah, well, what did the fumbles not count now?
One fumble.
He
got lucky early too. One just bopped right into his hands.
Yeah.
Anyways, what a legendary game between easily the two best teams in the country. The ROC Boys, it was always the freaking Bulldogs. Called it back in July. This team was set up to win a national title. Looked a little different than we thought it might have been. It was lining up to be like Eric Gilbert, JT Daniels, some unlikely heroes in Brock Bowers.
Pickens, who was hurt all year.
Yeah, Pickens comes off to give them some big plays. I mean, George Pickens' 52-yard catch, he doesn't make that incredible catch. That's 3 points off the board, and you might be down like 9-0 or something going in half. So, again, what an incredible game. We thank you guys for coming in. Immediate Reaction Podcast. It's been a hell of a fun football season, and we're getting into NFL draft season now, baby. Let's get it. I'm excited, and we appreciate you guys being here with us. Peace. Go Dogs.